The vastness of space holds both wonder and horror in equal measure, a lesson Captain Yara Cade of the starship Vindicator knows all too well. As she navigated through a particularly desolate part of the frontier, a series of scrambled, faint signals caught the attention of her communications officer. These were not just anomalies. They were deliberate, structured, and distressingly human in origin. Yara decided to divert course, following the signals to their source, a small, uncharted planet hidden within the folds of a nebulous gas cloud. The planet, marked only by its coordinates, seemed insignificant on galactic maps, but the signals suggested otherwise. Upon entering orbit, the planet revealed little from space, a barren, rocky surface with no obvious signs of civilization. Yara led a small, heavily armed reconnaissance team aboard one of the Vindicator's shuttles to investigate. The surface was as desolate as it appeared from orbit, with harsh winds sweeping across rocky basins. The team discovered an entrance to an underground facility camouflaged against the planet's stony terrain. Inside, the air was stale, the corridors dimly lit by flickering lights. The architecture was unmistakably alien, sleek surfaces, strange symbols, and technology far beyond human design. As they delved deeper, the unsettling silence was punctuated by the soft echo of distant cries, human cries. Following the sounds, they arrived at a sealed chamber. Yara used her security override codes to access the room, revealing a sight that tightened her chest in anger and horror. A young boy, no more than 10, was suspended in a containment field, his body marked with surgical scars and his eyes wide with fear. Around him, various scientific instruments and monitors displayed data in an alien script, clearly analyzing his physiological responses. Yara deactivated the containment field, and the boy collapsed into the arms of her medical officer. Introducing himself as Milo, he spoke in a trembling voice about the experiments conducted on him, tests of endurance, pain, and psychological torment, all part of a larger scheme by the so-called Galactic Council to understand and perhaps replicate the resilience inherent to humans. The discovery of Milo was a spark in dry grass. Yara recorded his testimony and prepared her team for immediate departure. As they ascended back to the Vindicator, Yara's resolve hardened like the steel of her ship. This atrocity could not stand unanswered. The Council would have to answer for their horrors, and she would see to it that the flames of retribution would be felt across the galaxy. Captain Yara Cade returned to the Vindicator, her mind racing with the gravity of what she had just witnessed. The journey back to human-occupied space was tense, with every crew member feeling the weight of their grim discovery. Milo, under the care of the ship's medical team, provided more details about his captivity and the experiments conducted on him. His stories, filled with descriptions of other missing children and horrifying scientific trials, only fueled the crew's anger and desire for justice. Upon reaching the nearest United Terran Forces (UTF) outpost, Yara transmitted her findings directly to High Command. The evidence, particularly the visual documentation and Milo's harrowing account, sent shockwaves through the highest echelons of human government and military leadership. High Commander Lena Joe, a veteran leader known for her decisive action, immediately grasped the implications of the situation. A meeting was convened with top military officials and representatives of the human colonies. The evidence presented by Captain Cade was irrefutable and incendiary. The room, filled with seasoned soldiers and diplomats, resonated with a unified call for action. Recognizing the necessity of a strong response, High Commander Joe declared a state of total war against the Galactic Council. This was not a decision taken lightly, but the atrocities committed against one of their own could not be tolerated. Humanity had long suspected the Council's disdain for their species, but the discovery of such barbaric experiments was a clear declaration of hostility that demanded a retaliatory response. Across human territories, the news spread like wildfire. The media broadcasted Milo's story, and it resonated deeply with the public. The image of a child subjected to such cruelty galvanized the population. Support for military action was overwhelming, transcending previous political and economic divisions. Recruitment centers saw long lines as civilians volunteered for service, driven by a surge of solidarity and outrage. The UTF mobilized its fleets, calling in forces from across human space. Ships were refitted, arsenals stocked, and troops briefed. Strategies were drawn up, targeting key Galactic Council planets and installations. Each fleet, each squad was briefed not just on the tactical objectives but also on the cause, retribution for Milo, and a definitive statement to any who dared threaten human sovereignty. As the Armada prepared to depart, High Commander Joe addressed the troops, her words broadcast across all human media channels. Today, we stand united not just as a force of war but as a beacon of justice. We fight not for conquest but to protect our own, to respond to tyranny with the full might of humanity. Let the galaxy witness the strength of our resolve. With the fleets ready and the entire human populace behind them, the UTF set its sights on their first target, the military hub world of Zarion, a critical point in the Galactic Council's defenses. The operation was poised to be swift and devastating, a statement that humanity would not only defend its own, but strike back with overwhelming force. The coordinated attack on the Galactic Council's military hub, Zarion, marked the beginning of humanity's retaliatory campaign. Under the cloak of darkness provided by a nearby asteroid field, UTF fleets, led by Captain Yara Cade, emerged into the Zarion system. The element of surprise was crucial, and the human forces executed their approach with surgical precision. As the fleets positioned themselves around the planet, a silence pervaded the ships. This moment of calm before the storm was short-lived. On Captain Cade's command, the battle commenced. The quiet of space was shattered by the roar of quantum torpedoes and the relentless barrage of laser fire. Zarion's defense systems, caught off guard, scrambled to respond, but the intensity and coordination of the human attack overwhelmed them. The space around Zarion turned into a chaotic ballet of exploding ships, evasive maneuvers, and strategic strikes. The UTF's primary objective was to cripple the planet's defensive capabilities and command centers, paving the way for ground forces to secure key installations. Special Forces teams, including elite commando units, were deployed from orbit in high-speed dropships, penetrating the planet's atmosphere like meteors. On the ground, the battle was equally fierce. UTF troops faced stiff resistance from Council forces, who were well-trained but unprepared for the ferocity and resolve of the human soldiers. The urban areas around military bases turned into intense combat zones, with house-to-house fighting and strategic use of drone strikes to clear paths for infantry advances. Amidst the chaos, Captain Cade coordinated the assault from her flagship, providing real-time orders and adapting to the changing battlefield dynamics. Her leadership was instrumental in maintaining the momentum of the attack, ensuring that the initial surprise was capitalized upon effectively. As the day turned into night on Zarion, the tide of battle decidedly shifted in favor of the human forces. With most of their command infrastructure in ruins and their military installations captured or destroyed, the remaining Council forces on Zarion surrendered. The victory was a critical first blow against the Galactic Council, sending a clear message to all observing systems. Humanity was not only capable of defending itself, but also taking the fight directly to their enemies. The fall of Zarion had strategic and symbolic significance. Strategically, it disrupted the Galactic Council's military logistics and command networks, severely limiting their ability to coordinate a counterattack. Symbolically, it demonstrated the resolve and capability of the united Terran forces, boosting morale across human-controlled space and further solidifying public support for the war effort. As the dust settled on Zarion, Captain Cade and her troops took stock of their victory. While the cost was not insignificant, the success provided a crucial foothold in Council territory, serving as a staging ground for further operations. The message was clear. Humanity was a formidable force, united and resolute in the face of atrocity, and ready to continue their campaign until justice for Milo and all human victims was achieved. With Zarion under human control, the UTF shifted its focus to Ardan, a pivotal cultural and economic stronghold within the Galactic Council's domains. Unlike Zarion, Ardan was renowned for its sophisticated defenses and a well-entrenched military presence. General Akira Chen, known for her tactical ingenuity, was chosen to lead the siege of Ardan. The approach to Ardan was methodical. General Chen initiated a blockade, cutting off all supply lines to the planet and isolating it from Council reinforcements. The siege began with psychological operations, broadcasting messages to the planet's defenders and civilian population about the futility of resistance and the justness of the human cause, particularly highlighting the Council's brutal experiments on human subjects. Simultaneously, Chen's forces conducted precise, strategic strikes on military targets. These were not indiscriminate bombings, but carefully planned operations aimed at minimizing civilian casualties while crippling the Council's ability to wage war. Specialized squads deployed EMP drones to disable shield generators and communication arrays, creating openings for ground forces to exploit. The siege dragged on for days. Inside Ardan's war rooms, the planet's commanders faced dwindling resources and growing dissent among their ranks, strained by the relentless pressure of the UTF's tactics. On the ground, skirmishes broke out in the urban shadows and the dense alleyways of Ardan's major cities, where UTF commandos engaged Council troops in intense close-quarter battles. General Chen, monitoring the situation from her command ship, adjusted her strategies in real time, responding to the shifting dynamics on the ground. Her ability to anticipate and counter the Council's moves was a testament to her experience and deep understanding of interstellar warfare. As the siege wore on, the morale of the Council's forces began to waver. Reports of defections and surrenders started to trickle in, providing UTF forces with critical intelligence and opportunities to push deeper into strategic locations. The psychological operations were having the intended effect. The civilian populace began to call for peace, exerting pressure on their leaders to negotiate an end to the hostilities. Finally, facing insurmountable odds and isolated from any possible reinforcements, the Council's commanders on Ardan opened negotiations for surrender. The terms were strict: an unconditional surrender of their military forces, the turnover of all Council leaders responsible for human experimentation, and full access for human forces to ensure compliance. The surrender of Ardan marked a significant milestone in the war. It was not just a military victory, but a symbolic one that showcased the UTF's ability to conduct a siege with precision and humanity, respecting civilian lives while effectively dismantling the enemy's capability to fight. The victory at Ardan bolstered the human campaign's momentum, setting the stage for further advances into the heart of Council territories. The fall of Ardan sent ripples across the galaxy, proving that even the most fortified planets could not withstand the determined assault of a united humanity seeking justice. As the war progressed, a crucial development unfolded away from the battlefields. UTF diplomats, capitalizing on the disarray within the Galactic Council caused by the successive losses of Zarion and Ardan, initiated secret negotiations with several moderate Council species. These species, disillusioned by the Council's aggressive policies and horrified by the revelations of human experimentation, showed willingness to oppose the more militant members of the Council. These delicate diplomatic efforts were led by Ambassador Tessa Harrow, a seasoned diplomat known for her ability to navigate complex interstellar politics. The meetings took place aboard the neutral station of Delta Sigma, positioned in a sector untouched by the conflict. The goal was clear: to fracture the Galactic Council from within, encouraging defections that would weaken their united front against humanity. Meanwhile, Captain Yara Cade continued her mission to rescue other human prisoners. Intelligence gathered during the siege of Ardan led to actionable information on the locations of other experimental facilities similar to the one where Milo had been held. These missions were not only rescue operations, but also served to gather further evidence of the Council's atrocities, fueling the propaganda efforts of the UTF and justifying their cause in the eyes of the galaxy. The raids were perilous. Each facility was heavily guarded, located on planets with hostile environments and complex security systems. Captain Cade, leading a team of elite commandos, executed these missions with precision. The rescued humans were diverse: men, women, and more children, each with stories that echoed Milo's horrors. The emotional impact of these reunions, often broadcast across human networks, solidified public support for the war and human unity. Back at Delta Sigma, Ambassador Harrow worked tirelessly. The negotiations were fraught with risk. Any leak could spell disaster, leading to potential sabotage or assassination attempts by hardline Council factions. However, the evidence of the Council's experiments, combined with the strategic victories by UTF forces, gradually swayed the moderate species. Agreements were reached in secrecy, promising support for human forces and, more critically, intelligence sharing that would expose vulnerabilities in the Council's military network. The combined effect of the diplomatic maneuvers and the successful rescue operations marked the turning point in the war. The Galactic Council, now facing internal dissent and external military pressures, began to crumble. The morale among Council forces plummeted as news of defections and the reality of human resolve spread through their ranks. The fragmentation within the Galactic Council became apparent when several member species publicly declared their neutrality, refusing to support the Council's war efforts. This internal division was a direct result of Ambassador Harrow's successful negotiations, significantly weakening the Council's ability to coordinate its defenses against the advancing human military. As human forces prepared for the next phase of their campaign, the once united front of the Galactic Council was now a fragmented shadow of its former self, with its members questioning the war's validity and their leadership's decisions. Humanity's strategic combination of military prowess and diplomatic acuity had shifted the balance of power, setting the stage for a final push towards the Council's core worlds, where the ultimate battles for justice for Milo and all human victims would unfold. The strategic heart of the Galactic Council's operations, Nexon, was now in the crosshairs of the United Terran forces. This planet was critical as it housed the main command network and communication hubs that coordinated Council military activities across multiple systems. The battle for Nexon promised to be the most intense confrontation of the war, a pivotal clash that could determine the ultimate outcome. High Commander Lena Zhou took personal command of the operation, leading a multi-fleet assault composed of the best ships and troops the UTF had to offer. The preparation for the battle was meticulous, with intelligence from the now cooperative moderate Council species playing a crucial role in planning the attack. As the human fleets approached Nexon, they were met with a formidable array of defenses. The Council, aware of the planet's strategic importance, had fortified it with the latest weaponry and a large garrison of troops. The space around Nexon became a maelstrom of energy beams and explosions as the battle commenced. Human ships, using advanced tactics and coordinated maneuvers, managed to breach the initial defense perimeter, establishing a foothold in orbit around the planet. On the surface, UTF ground forces faced a grueling fight. Nexon's terrain, marked by rugged landscapes and fortified installations, provided a significant advantage to the defending forces. However, the human troops, motivated by the cause and hardened by previous victories, pushed forward relentlessly. Specialized mech units and armored divisions led the charge, breaking through key defensive lines and securing critical objectives. Captain Yara Cade, once again leading from the front, spearheaded a crucial operation to capture Nexon's central command hub. Her team, a blend of commandos and engineers, infiltrated the heavily guarded facility. Inside, they encountered fierce resistance, but the expertise and bravery of the commandos eventually overcame the defenders. Securing the command hub crippled the Council's ability to coordinate its forces galaxy-wide, a crippling blow to their war efforts. The battle for Nexon continued for days, with neither side yielding an inch without a fight. The skies were lit with the continuous blaze of ship cannons, while the ground echoed with the roar of artillery and the clash of ground combatants. The turning point came when UTF forces managed to disrupt the power grid of Nexon, causing widespread chaos and disabling many of the planet's automated defense systems. With the command hub captured and their defenses faltering, the resolve of the Council forces began to break. Surrenders increased as the reality of defeat set in. High Commander Zhou, recognizing the shift in momentum, ordered a final push across the planet. UTF troops, supported by heavy orbital bombardment, advanced on the last pockets of resistance. The capture of Nexon was decisive. It effectively dismantled the Galactic Council's ability to wage a coordinated war, leaving their remaining forces isolated and disorganized. The victory was celebrated across human territories, hailed as a testament to human strategy, resilience, and the indomitable spirit of those fighting for justice and retribution. In the aftermath of the battle, the strategic landscape of the galaxy had shifted irrevocably. The Galactic Council, once a formidable multi-species entity capable of dictating interstellar policy, was now reeling, its authority undermined, and its military might shattered. The path was now clear for the UTF to push forward to the Council's capital, Glea Prime, for what could be the final confrontation of the war. The campaign to bring the Galactic Council to justice reached its climax with the assault on Glea Prime, the political heart of the Council's dominion and the seat of its governance. This heavily fortified planet represented the final stronghold of the Council's remaining forces and leadership. High Commander Lena Zhou, orchestrating the final stages of the campaign, was determined to end the war decisively. The UTF amassed its largest fleet yet for the assault on Glea Prime. The Armada, comprising hundreds of warships and countless fighters, surrounded the planet in a display of overwhelming force. Ground troops, veterans of numerous battles, prepared for what was anticipated to be the most challenging fight of their lives. As the battle commenced, the space around Glea Prime erupted into chaos. UTF ships engaged Council defenses in a ferocious exchange of fire. The human forces, leveraging their superior tactics and the element of surprise honed through previous victories, managed to penetrate the planetary defenses, clearing a path for troop landers and dropships. On the surface, the battle was brutal. The Council's forces, though demoralized by their recent defeats, were fighting on their home ground, giving them a temporary advantage. High Commander Zhou coordinated the operations from her flagship, directing troops and support to critical areas. She utilized a combination of heavy artillery, air support, and ground maneuvers to systematically dismantle the Council's defenses. One of the pivotal moments of the siege was the capture of the Council's war room, where many high-ranking leaders were arrested. This operation, led by Captain Yara Cade, was a microcosm of the overall battle, intense, perilous, and executed with precision. The fall of the war room sent shock waves through the remaining Council troops, many of whom surrendered shortly thereafter. As the final hours of the battle drew to a close, the UTF's forces had secured most of the critical infrastructure on Glea Prime. The Council's ability to fight back was effectively neutralized, with their command structure dismantled and their military assets captured or destroyed. In the war's aftermath, High Commander Zhou oversaw the formal surrender ceremony. The remaining leaders of the Galactic Council were taken into custody, charged with crimes against humanity, including the horrific experiments on human children. The treaty signed that day not only disbanded the Galactic Council, but also included provisions for war reparations and assurances for the protection of human rights across the galaxy. The victory was bittersweet. While justice had been achieved for Milo and the many others who suffered under the Council's tyranny, the cost in lives and resources was immense. Yet, the end of the war marked a new beginning for humanity's role in galactic affairs. The human territories began a period of rebuilding and renewal, focusing on strengthening alliances with those species that had stood against the Council's atrocities. High Commander Zhou and Captain Cade became figures of legend, symbols of the resilience and courage that had defined humanity's response to one of its darkest chapters. The war had changed the galactic landscape forever, positioning humanity not as mere survivors, but as leaders in a newly forming alliance of species united by a desire for peace and mutual respect. The war for retribution had ended, but the work of building a lasting peace was just beginning. Humanity now faced the challenge of leading a fractured galaxy towards unity and cooperation, a task they accepted with determination and hope. In the wake of the war, the galaxy was forever altered. The destruction of the Galactic Council marked the end of an era of oppression and the beginning of a new chapter in interstellar relations. The human territories, now viewed as both liberators and formidable powers, faced the daunting task of leadership in a restructuring galaxy. The rebuilding process was extensive. On planets that had suffered under the Council's rule, reconstruction efforts were initiated, supported by human-led coalitions. The focus was not just on physical reconstruction, but also on healing the deep psychological wounds inflicted by years of conflict and oppression. Milo, the boy whose suffering had ignited the flames of war, became an icon of resilience and the need for vigilance against tyranny. His recovery, closely followed by the public, symbolized the collective trauma and eventual healing of all those who had been victims of the Council's experiments. Humanitarian efforts expanded, led by figures like Captain Yara Cade, who had transitioned from a military leader to an advocate for peace and reconciliation. The political landscape of the galaxy was fundamentally reshaped. The vacuum left by the disbandment of the Galactic Council was filled by the Galactic Assembly, a new multi-species governing body with strong human influence. This assembly was founded on principles of equality, justice, and mutual respect, aiming to avoid the mistakes of its predecessor. Ambassador Tessa Harrow, pivotal in the diplomatic efforts during the war, played a crucial role in shaping the new assembly. The new governance structure included representatives from all willing species, each with an equal voice, regardless of their military or economic power. This inclusive approach fostered a sense of shared responsibility and collective security. The UTF, while scaling back its wartime posture, remained vigilant. The fleets were reorganized into peacekeeping and rapid response units, ready to intervene in conflicts or disasters across the galaxy. High Commander Lena Zhou, now a respected senior advisor in the Galactic Assembly, emphasized the importance of maintaining a capable and ready defense force, not for conquest, but to preserve peace. Culturally, the war left a lasting imprint on human society and beyond. Art, literature, and film began to reflect themes of unity, resilience, and the complex realities of war. Stories of the battles, the heroes, and the liberated were shared in classrooms and media, shaping a collective memory that underscored the importance of guarding against tyranny. As peace took root, trade routes reopened and flourished, with humans and other species traveling and trading more freely than ever. This economic boom helped to accelerate recovery efforts and facilitated a broader cultural exchange, enriching societies galaxy-wide. The legacy of the war, particularly the human role in ending the Galactic Council's reign, was complex. While some criticized the ferocity of the human response, many more celebrated the emergence of humans as guardians of galactic stability. The lessons of the conflict, particularly the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of compassion and resilience, resonated deeply across diverse worlds. As the years passed, the galaxy, under the watchful eyes of the Galactic Assembly, grew more stable and united. The scars of the past remained, but they were marks of survival, reminding everyone of the cost of freedom and the value of peace. Humanity, once on the periphery of galactic affairs, now stood at the forefront, ready to face the future with confidence and a commitment to justice for all.